Well, I had a wonderful life. I started very young. I was very lucky. I was sent to elocution lessons, I was sent to singing lessons, I was sent to piano lessons. And, that has been the source of so much joy and pleasure in my life, all my life. It's great to start children young in the arts. Father O'Flynn's Shakespearean class on a Sunday morning in the loft, which was over a sweet factory. He was brilliant. That's where I got home my love of Shakespeare. He always did everything with a Cork accent and said, get the reality, get to the reality of it. So he was a brilliant teacher, and I never opened my mouth. I never acted there. I was only a little girl, but I watched in awe, listened to everything, took everything in, loved it. I suppose it was the passion, the beautiful language, the truth of the emotions, the truth of his characters, and the beauty of it. The rhythms, amazing. I went back to acting a few years ago. After my daughter died, I was sunk. And Frank, that's one of my sons, he's very keen in acting. He was going to classes and he kept saying to me, come on down to classes. And I said, I can't, I'm too old. I loved getting back to it. That's only a few years ago now. I just loved getting back to it. Oh yeah, it brought me back to life. Yeah, it did. Anything in the arts brings you to life. I don't know how people live without it. I think it's essential that every child should be exposed to music and drama and art, because then they'll find the one that suits them and the one that feeds them and the one that gives them joy. Yeah, I've had a joyous life. Because I had the art as well. Yeah. I was designing in the Mercier Press, and that was very interesting. But I think the theatre was the great love, because that's you really expressing yourself there and you're entering to another character. And so I never stopped studying. And then when I qualified to be a teacher, I taught speech and drama, and I loved it. Did I say that already? I loved teaching. I loved my pupils. Yeah. Well, you see, we're very lucky that in the School of Music it's 1-to-1. So you could get very close to a child and help them to open up and explore the poems or the drama or really go deep, and the teaching of how to express themselves. Yeah, loved it. I have a prayer partner that I've been praying with for the last 30 years, I'd say. And even when she had to move to Scotland, we kept up a prayer meeting once a week on the phone. So that's been going on over years and years, every single week. That's a great source of life to me, and wisdom and comfort. Couldn't live without it. I was so upset, actually, on Good Friday that I couldn't, always, all my life since I was a child, did the stations on Good Friday and accompanied him around through that journey. And all the churches were closed, and that's what started me writing poetry. Again, I'd given it up. I'd given up everything in the isolation of this COVID. I was doing nothing. The first poem I wrote was a poem to Jesus about that. Did the blood-red wine, as it splashed into the cup, terrify and tempt you to give up? Did your body cringe in fear as your fingers broke the bread at a vision of a cross with a tortured body, dead? Did your brother's warm embrace tempt you to delay God's perfect plan for man? And did you cry for some more time before you died? As you tied the sandals on your perfumed feet, did the memory of a loving face and smiling mouth disturb the hand upon the plough? Did one lonely tear run down your cheek? And did you for one moment plead, Father, please, not now? This isolation period, jumping around to Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan and Linda Ronstadt. They were my three favourites. So, you know, the arts can just bring your whole body to life, your mind to life, your spirit to life. So, no matter how late it is, and even if you've never done it, do it now. Get involved in everything. Creative. While all the others were away at Mass, I was all hers as we peeled potatoes. They broke the silence, let fall one by one, like solder weeping off the soldering iron. Cold comforts set between us, things to share, gleaming in a bucket of clean water, and again let fall. Little pleasant splashes from each other's work would bring us to our senses. So while the parish priest at her bedside went hammer and tongs at the prayers for the dying, and some were responding, and some were crying, I remembered her head bent towards my head, her breath in mine, our fluent dipping knives. Never closer, the whole rest of our lives.
My name is Liz Downs and I'm from Mitchellstown in County Cork. I was born and reared here in the town, about a half mile at the other end of the town. And I married the love of my life and my best friend 50 years ago next Thursday. And this is his home place, and I'm living here all that length of time. I love being out the country. We have a small little farm here, and we work the farm, and I work in Tesco myself. I have a part-time job, and I love that as well. I'm very involved in community work here. I'm in the Girl Guides with 42 years this year. We go camping, we go hiking, we go cooking, we do a bit of everything. And I think that keeps me young at heart. Actually, I was 72 last June, the 11th of June last. I feel 21 plus, 45% value-added tax. And I suppose the reason for that is being involved with young people and with elderly people as well. We had a great upbringing. We remember, you know, at the time of the hay saving, we'd go up in the field and they'd be saving hay, and I would help my mum to bring the tea up to the workers, and of course a bottle of stout for the neighbours as well. And it was brilliant. And that time is so different to now. You would have little frogs running around, you'd have bees buzzing around, you'd have the birds chirping, and it was so different. I suppose my life was turned upside down on the 22nd of January 2004 when we got this phone call to say there was a tragic accident. And a lot of my family was killed in that accident. My daughter-in-law, my grandson, her mother, her sister, and my other grandson that survived. That little boy, who's 23 actually this year, he's great. He came out of that accident brilliantly. It was very tough on him and on my own son. To have a family unit in the morning and that evening to have no one, it was just horrific. But thank God, you know, we all survived it okay, and my grandson and my son are living happily, and their grandson is going to college. My son remarried and is happy out, and everything is going well. And that's all we wish for. I didn't think I'd ever see the day that I could say that, you know, we're at peace with that accident. It took a lot out of us at the start, but my faith, my respect, my energy, all went into that at the time, and I think it paid off, and, you know, and everything is well. I remember very well, actually, Mary McAleese rang my house here. I wasn't there at the time, so she rang the local priest to tell him to convey her sympathy to me, because I'm a President's Award leader of the Goshka Award, and she also sent me a massive bouquet of flowers, and that's something I would cherish for the rest of my life. Outside of that, the community here in Mitchelstown were fantastic. People coming, conveying their condolences, asking what can they do to support us. I'm involved in the Girl Guides 42 years, and I'm a trainer and an international trainer with the Guides. I train the adults into the Guide program, and I could fill my house here with cards, greetings, flowers, everything that they sent me when they heard about the accident. And I think all of that combination of young people, older people, middle-aged people, all coming together and wishing me well and my family well. And I think that's why it's so important for people out there to get involved in the community if they can at all. You know, to keep connected with people. Connection is a great thing. You may not always have the opportunity of going out doing what I'm doing, because I'm really involved heavily in the community. But people listening to this and sitting at home can always take up the phone, ring their friend, stay connected, because they'll be there in time of crisis. And everybody needs somebody to talk to. So stay connected like I have, and that's what brought me through those hard times. Okay, when I was very young, I always wanted to be a journalist. I don't know why, but I think my uncle was a journalist in Carrigansure, and I hadn't known about that until after he died. And my dad used to always say, oh, you probably take after my brother, you know, who was a journalist. But I never got the opportunity, and I don't know why. I suppose a lot of it was my own fault. I just didn't pursue it at the time. But later in years, when I was 55 actually, I decided to go back to college. And I was so thrilled with myself. Back to university, here's Liz Downs, a senior citizen, and she's gone back learning. I suppose where the inspiration came from was I was so involved in community work, and I wanted to learn more. I just had to know more about community and how I could improve Mitchelstown, or how I could improve myself. And if I decide on doing something, it has to be done. So I said, here goes. So I'm back to college, and I was halfway through college when the accident happened. So that deterred me for a little while, but it didn't stop me. I kept going and kept working hard, and I did the exam, and I came out 100%, and I was so thrilled with myself. And, you know, I would just like to convey to people that if there's something that's bothering you, or if there's something that you'd like to do, go ahead and do it. Don't worry about what people say. I mean, people you say to me, oh, well, at your age, you went back to school. Will you use what you're going to use? And I'd say, yeah, you know, it's not really about using the thing either. It's about myself, and that how determined I was, and how I needed to be, and how that I hope someday to write a book, which, by the way, I've started on a book at the moment. Living in the 50s, the 60s and the 70s, and God only knows whose name will come into it or what might come out of it. I hope to have a humorous, I hope to have a traditional, I hope to bring back all the the old stuff that we learned, that we did, that the fun we had, the courting with the boyfriend, everything will come into it. The winding of the hay, the lovely evening, the long evenings, and you know, it would just inspire people if they started thinking that way. Because I'm like yourself out there, I was thinking, what can I do? But there's always something everyone can do. So anybody that's out there sitting at home, just get up, do something, get connected, take on a skill, or just do something positive every day. And at the end of the week, look at the 7 positivity things you've done and see how you can improve. And if you get up in the morning and things are down, write down what you're down about. And the following day, try and, you know, use a positive sign to bring that and make it better. And I said, life will be much better. And, you know, we can look forward. There's better days ahead. And please God, this COVID won't go on forever. And we'll be all talking and listening and chatting and having fun again together. So keep positive.
I suppose the first bits of music that I ever heard, and I'm the eldest, so I probably heard it first, would have been traditional Irish, wheels, jigs, hornpipes. But as a young fella growing up in the 60s, I had to listen to Radio Luxembourg. Now, many times was under the sheets with a torchlight, and hoping Mum and Dad wouldn't hear Radio Luxembourg. So that's where I got into, and subsequently brought the lads along with me into top 20 music. And I guess that could be the starting point of the whole thing. This will be going back to the days of the Beatles, Beach Boys, Hermits, Tremolos, you know, these guys. I won't say we try to imitate them, but we liked the songs, and we took it from there and ended up going into the band and playing for nearly 10 years in clubs and dance halls, or dare I say ballrooms, around Cork and Kerry, and it was brilliant.
But in those days you could be playing 5, 6, 7 nights a week, because every parish had a youth club. And there was dinner dances, there was the Marker Field Day dances. If there was any event on, it was live music. This was like kind of pre-discos and all that. So.
I remember the early transport arrangements.
For God's sake.
3 motorbikes. 2 people on each bike with a speaker in between them. Lads, health and safety. Whoa.
We all remember the 150.
That was brilliant.
How about the Hammond organ up on the roof of a Cortina?
That's right, yeah. That's right.
That was before the
modern keyboards.
The modern keyboards came in. Oh, geez, that was murder. Didn't last long.
I mean, in those days, when the band was playing, the dances were maybe 8 to 12 or 9 to 1, and later on in the 70s, they'd been 10 o'clock to 2. But you were playing for the 4 hours. You know, you would start off, there might be a handful of people in the hall, but the halls filled up very fast in those days. So within half an hour, maybe 45 minutes maximum, the place was usually quite full, you know.
We had great fun, you know, going to and from bookings.
And the places that had the best food when you get there, the country places, they had fantastic sandwiches and the spread. So it was worth their getting there just for the spread.
Kenmare or Macroom, once you got out to the city at all, they'd have a meal ready for the band.
Fantastic. Before and after.
You'd
make great friends because the same people would be there. Like when you come back the next time,
they'd be there.
The same people were there, and you go on for years. Then
Judy in the castle in Macroom. There'd be half an inch of butter and these slices of bread.
Butter and bread sandwiches. That was brilliant.
I'd forgotten about them now.
Talking to us.
Half an inch of butter and each slice of bread.
No.
I remember one occasion we were playing of a Saturday night way down, probably Kenmare or somewhere down there. We actually got 6 o'clock mass in the Holy Trinity before we went home. But it never interfered with work, and you know, as I said, we had a lot of free time at night and the weekends. I took up 1 or 2 nights a week, and literally all the weekends.
Sometimes I take a stroll right into town. How I love to wander all around through the streets, young and old. Cork's own charm will unfold and lead you through its leeward roads, up and down. Through streets of cobblestone you may roam, or through the tar and grey of today. But the people you'll find, if you're lost, you needn't mind. With a charm and a smile, you're on your way. But the people you'll find, if you're lost, you needn't mind. With a charm and a smile, you're on your way.
Go back to the very, very early days. I suppose it all started with mum and dad, because they were in entertainment all their life as well. They played for the Pantos and Fish Matthew.
All the dancing, all the Irish dancing.
Yeah. So we were used to their lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
You know, they were out a lot at night. We had babysitters when we were younger. So when we got a bit older and the band kicked in, we were more or less continuing on the same
That's right.
type of lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it really hadn't a huge impact on us, really.
Mum and Dad encouraged us, but never forced us.
Yeah.
And
that's true, yeah.
that to me was very important.
Yeah.
That we were never forced into music.
No.
It just came from within with all of us. We loved it, and we were encouraged
all the way
as
through.
best we could. You know? That meant an awful lot to us.
They were very correct in the way they encouraged me to sing. They said, keep your mouth shut. And they were right.
You have other strain.
No, I have, yeah. I used to go to Peggy McTaggart. I had it down there, but not up here.
That's right, yeah.
The band was everything to us, and I will be forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
And there was no mobile phones or
Not at all.
Facebooks or any of those things. So a lot of what happened went unseen.
It certainly kept us together. And, as a garage, besides physically together, like emotionally.
No, health-wise has definitely been a positive because we had something to concentrate on, and if your mind is active with something, your body is going to react as well. So,
Of course, right.
as I say, plan your work and work your plan.
Exactly, yeah.
I woke up this morning, still in a dream, wondering if I had been where it seemed. It told of a world where there is no fear, and only some joy can bring out a tear. I wish I could stay in the stream I'd find, then all the tears could stay in my mind. I wish everybody could see what I mean, then all the world could live in my dream. Some time has gone by, I can see the rain falling like stones on the glass pane. But now I'm awake, and so it seems that this world of peace is only a dream. I wish I could stay in the stream I find, then all the tears could stay in my mind. I wish everybody could see what I mean, then all the world could live in my dream.
My name is Marion Britton, and I am married for 46 years with 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Very happily married. Love life, love Cove. Highlight of our activities would be a Cove animation team, which we formed in 2012. We have a variety of over 25 costumes. Early 1800s, we have 1900s, we have 1920s, we have 1916, we've done 1921. We've travelled quite a lot all over Ireland. We've been invited to so many events all over Ireland. And everybody gets so excited when they see the group together. We have 2 gentlemen, and we also have about 4 children, our grandchildren also come with us, and they dress in costume as well. So it tells the story really of how life was in that era, and it brings I think a lot of people love to see the old costumes, and they love to see what it was like to be dressed in those period costumes. We all love dressing up in our beautiful costumes, but it's you have to dress up as well in the ordinary people and the lower class, and we find that very interesting. Like the people that lived in tenement houses and that had lived in such awful conditions, really, like that there might have been 12 in a room, living in and sharing. We learnt that there was a lot of them living in those tenement houses, and that they'd shared their blouses and they'd shared their clothes, and they actually couldn't go out to do anything else, really. So quite sad. When we dress in that costume, it's amazing how the people don't actually connect with us. They just look and they say, oh, that's lovely. But when we go out with our beautiful gowns and in the period costumes of the 1800s and 1900s, they stop and they just say, oh, I love this, I love it, can we have a photograph? So it does create a lot of attention in Cove, and it's great that we're known all over, because when we go to West Cork or Wexford, everybody says, are you the Cove animation team? We buy most of the stuff ourselves, or we make an awful lot of them ourselves. We have people that do crochet and knitting and sewing, and so we spend hours and hours sewing and transforming our costumes at night. We make all our own hats, we transform all our costumes. We get donations from a lot of elderly people who, when they see us, they actually say, oh, I have something in the attic, I think that might be nice for yours. And then we challenge ourselves, and our leader then, Claire Stack, would give us an event. So then we would all gather together and then decide what costume would be most suitable for it. I was born in West Cork, and I went to school in a 2-teacher school with 40 students, and I was there until I was 13, where I did my primary cert, and then my sister Emily had gone to Cove to live, and she decided that maybe it would be nice if I went and got my education in Cove. So I came to Cove when I was 14, and I went to Cove Vocational School for 2 years, and I went to St. Mary's then for 3 years, doing my Leaving Cert in 1973, where I always thought I wasn't going to settle in Cove, but I met my husband to be when I was 15, and he was 8 years older than me, so it caused a bit of drama. But we got married when I was 21, had my first son at 21, and my other son at 25, and we're a very close family. Very close in the respect that I have 2 sisters living in Cove, and then my husband James, all his family are from Cove. So I have an extended family and very supportive. I found it very difficult because when I got married, I had Nigel within 5 months, and the stigma was horrendous in that era. It was unbelievable. So it was a very different world, and you were actually quite outcasted. In those days, you actually weren't really acceptable in community, because even when you were getting married, we were just trying to go, I can't go down that road now, but like when we were getting married, trying to go and get a priest to marry you was very difficult. Like, we were told to run along the corridor and get a priest. And no, we had a great day and a great life and everything like that, but they were very, very different times. They were very difficult times, I must say. And took a lot of time. Look, you know, a lot of women in my era, I know from West Cork, there was quite a few people that would have struggled. Very difficult, like with life, because you had no outlet, only to stay at home and do your job, and that was it. Homework and housework and mind your children and have families. Like, I was lucky in the respect that I had a very good husband and I have a lovely family. I'm very, very blessed with that. Now, we love the past history, and it is heritage of Cobh, and it's the heritage of our people as well. But we love bringing the modern women into it now. That has been a suggestion by Sabina Higgins and Mary McAleese, who I was in contact with, and they suggested that we should come forward now and do modern women, because there's a lot of very iconic modern women in history today, and they think it would be very beneficial to schools, and it would also be beneficial for people in general. It would be in the late 50s, early 60s, starting in that era where we've had presidents and you've had iconic women that really stood out for themselves and promoted women, basically because it has changed in the last 50 years. There's a huge change in the role of women. A lot of work still has to be done, a lot of work, and there's not enough really in government or in high priority jobs, but getting there slowly, and I think that would be very beneficial as well to promote. My advice to young people today would be to enjoy their creativity, to enhance it, make it that they will feel part of community. It's an art, it is an art without a doubt, but I think it connects so many people, whether it's drawing, whether it's knitting, whether you get involved in speech and language, whether you're involved in table quizzes. I think it's so important for them. But I would strongly recommend young people that they would really get involved in any artistic groups that are in their schools or in their community, because in later years it will help them, without a doubt. But it also helps the younger community to connect with the elderly people, and they can learn quite a lot from them. But likewise, you can learn so much from the younger people. In my opinion, I feel that they have helped so much in my life, because computer-wise, I had lost so much of it having finished work, and I couldn't even turn on the Facebook. I was ringing my grandchildren to know how do I actually do this. And then when you had to start doing emails, they were so helpful. So it is so important really to have a connection between the young and the elderly. I love flower arranging. I've never trained to be a florist or anything like that, but I just like it, and I would give a lot of people gifts of floral arrangements, and for Christmas, Easter, weddings, gifts. During COVID, I handed out a lot of little flower things, and you know, even when we were doing our afternoon teas, I did the original 1916 flowers for the tables, you know, sourced them. So yeah, love those.
Where and how can you go? Far from the things that you know, far from the sprawl of concrete that keeps crawling its way. About 1,000 miles a day. Take one last look behind. Commit this to memory and mind. Don't miss this wasteland, this terrible place when you leave. Shake your heart off your sleeve. Oh, motherland, cradle me, close my eyes, lullaby me to sleep. Keep me keep me safe, lie with me, stay beside me, don't go. I've always loved working with particularly drawing, I suppose, all my life. When I left school, I went to NCAD in Dublin for a couple of years, and then I went into teaching after that when I went to London. But I always kept up the drawing over the years. You know, when the kids were small, I was working. So I could only just kind of do art part-time. And then when I retired and came back to Ireland, I went back into doing drawing and joined an over 55s group in Skibbereen painting group with Paul Cialis, and heard about the course on Sherkin then, the art degree course, the BAVA course. It's a 4-year honours visual arts degree course. So I applied and was very surprised I was accepted, and so I studied here for 4 years in Sherkin, and that's how I came to live here. My work started off very differently when I was doing the course, because I was still working with asylum seekers in Clonakilty then. So most of that work was to do with migration and movement of peoples. So my grad work, which is upstairs on the walls, that was all around that subject. And then because I was here, I just started to look at what was around me. And I started a fixation really with seagulls in particular. Because they're here everywhere. Every window you look out, there's gulls, and they're a very strong presence. And then I hurt my wrist. The gulls are quite intricate to do. There's a lot of detail in them. So when I hurt my wrist, I decided to go into landscapes and see where that brought me. So this summer's show was mostly landscapes. I like my own company, and you're never really alone in Sherkin, because it's a close community, you know. And if you can have your own space if you want it, but some days you'd be here and you'd be talking to a woodlouse and you'd realise you should really go and see some people. And you can always call in on people's houses. There's so many welcoming places where you can go, you know. It's a good spot to be. Having a passion for making or doing stuff or creating anything it's good for the soul, it's good for the mind, you know, and it just keeps you active, keeps your brain going, and it gives you something to find joy in, really, I suppose. Yeah, very important. I wouldn't be religious, but I'd be fairly spiritual, I think, in some ways. I do believe in higher things, but I wouldn't be in no particular religion, you know. This is my space that I use. I'm very lucky to have. It's the landing of the house, basically. I use it now with easels, but when I was doing the art course for my grad show, I used the walls as a canvas. At that time I was working with asylum seekers in Clonakilty, and it was the time of the migration crisis, particularly around the Greek islands. And a Syrian lady that I knew well from Clonakilty, Nisreen, came out here one day on a visit because I wanted to show her the work that I was doing, just to make sure that it meant something to her. And she told me a story about her cousin who had lost her child on the way on one of those trips to one of the Greek islands, and that her story sort of became the basis for the work. So I recorded the story as an audio piece, and then I was experimenting with Chinese rice paper up here on the walls, and using inks with it. And when I took it away from the wall, there was an image left on the wall, and that seemed to fit in with my work. So I then just carried on creating more and more images on top of one another on the walls, and that was the basis of my grad show. But now I can use the space, and they kind of surround me. But I went on from there, from migration to looking at landing. Flight and landing, I suppose, and that's what sort of tied me into the gulls initially. And so I've been painting a lot of seagulls, and I sell. They're going pretty well. They go at auction with Morgan O'Driscoll in Skibbereen, and also in in the Yellow Door in Baltimore. It's full of, usually you'd see lots of choughs, and in the summer it's full of skylarks, and we have hares, we have a barn owl. Lots of wonderful things here. And these are the most chilled cattle in the country. If you see, they don't ever move out of your way. So you put a bit of wire on it and you leave the latch not quite closed, and you just hit the gate with your car and it opens. Okay, so the haiku group was set up on Sherkin. It was actually just before the lockdown. There's a lady called Tess Leake who does community art projects, and she came onto the island and did a couple of workshops with us. And then the lockdown happened, and we formed a WhatsApp group and kept in touch throughout the lockdown through working on haikus together. And we got so much material that we actually brought out a publication. We linked up with a guy in Canada who's a fairly well-known haiku poet called Paul Lederidge, and he gave us a lot of support. So we ended up with a really nice publication called Together Apart, which has examples of haikus from all around the island. And around about the same time, there was a competition run by Cork County Library Service, I think, for a haiku piece and for just an ordinary poem. So I put one in and I won first prize. So I was very pleased. Near where I live, there's a very, very tiny beach that's got lots of shells on it. And when the tide comes in, it makes a beautiful sort of hushy sound over the shells. And this is called Spring. Hush breath incoming of tide on shell-littered cove. Spring sunshine glancing. Oh, my five and dime queen, tell me what have you seen? The lust and the avarice, the bottomless, the cavernous greed. Is that what you see? Oh, motherland, cradle me, close my eyes, lullaby me to sleep. Keep me safe, lie with me, stay beside me, don't go.
I came to Cove in 1962. Believe it or not. And I actually came to Cove as a Blarney Rose. At that time, there was a folk festival run in Cove, an international folk festival. And I was working in Crosshaven at the time in a famous Kenefix hotel. And one night there was a dance, but we weren't allowed out after 10 o'clock. So a couple of girls and myself decided, would we go to this ballroom tonight? It was in Crosshaven. And we did. We had a great night at the dance. And anyway, they started picking out girls, and I was saying, what are they doing? And of course they came to me and they said, we're looking for a representative from Crosshaven for a Blarney Rose. I did come to Cove then for the festival, and sure, my God, I thought I was gone to America. From there on, my life has been a roller coaster. I then met the man of my dreams, but again, I wasn't too interested. He's totally the opposite to what I would have liked. And I was saying, he'd be great if he could dance, but he couldn't dance. So I said, don't worry, I'll make him dance. Went to London. The jobs were very easy to get back then. So I decided, I got a ground hostess in London Airport, or then I got a supervisor in Butlins. So I took the Butlins one in Clacton-on-Sea. So I stayed there, and in the meantime, my then boyfriend said, how about getting married? After 1 year. So that, I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, I was only 20, coming up to 21. So I did. I got married in the September, came back to Cove to live. So we bought this house. We had to do a little bit to it. But look, from there on, that's my life story as far as there. We have 4 children. We have a son and 3 daughters. They're all my best friends. They have done extremely well. And from there, how do I say, my life has been absolutely a whirlwind. And I couldn't have wished for more. I'm a very lucky person, and I'm very grateful. I started off by going to a parade one day, and I dressed up in Victorian dress, and I thought I'd like it. So it all started from that day in a St. Patrick's Day parade. So from there on, then I started making all my own gear, my dresses, my hats. And Mr. Jack Welsh, the Cove manager of the Heritage Centre, was very facilitating, and he actually set up a little area in the museum. So we meet and greet all the passengers and visitors to the Heritage Centre. And of course, they're so interesting. I love people. I talk all day to them. From there then, the Cove Flower Club were having an exhibition in Bloom in Dublin. And they said, would you come up, 2 of us, just 2 of us. So we headed off on the train, Jan and myself. So we were dressed up in costumes, and we got on in Cork. And we were surrounded, and we said, oh my God. So then we got on the train to Dublin, and as we got off in Houston, they were all going to the Bloom, but they were all surrounding us. I said, where are you going? So anyway, we got on a bus, and we arrived in Bloom. And as we arrived there, we bought our tickets and everything for €25 or 22 or whatever it was. We just went in as ordinary, and we were looking for the Cove Flower Club. But we never got to there. So we got in, and as we arrived there then, they were saying, where are you from? So we said, we're from Cove, we're here now. They said, would you ever come this way? And I was saying, oh my God, where are they taking us now? So security. And they paraded us up into this stand. And who was there? Only the president and his wife. And I thought, oh my God, this had come and joined. They welcomed us, and we were delighted. And here we were in the VIP stand. Then we were surrounded with TV cameras, photographers. We were in, I think, 9 different papers the following day. Now, we were a nobody, but we still hit the headlines. And then we got loads of invites. We got one to Meath, County Meath, and that was absolutely fabulous. We went there then for the weekend. They put us up in the hotel and treated us like a queen's thing. We met Patrick Bergin, the film star, and again, we were on all the papers again. So look, that's me. I think that's enough about me now. I absolutely love vintage. I love creating hats, dresses. I buy an awful lot of my stuff in the charity shops. I have friends in shops who know now that I'm into it, and I'm very lucky. They come up by bags, umbrellas, gloves, hats. I have 60 hats in total. I must have I can actually dress anybody, and I also dress men as well. I absolutely love designing costumes. I make all my hats, and I will create them for any occasion. For me, I think you must be yourself. You have to be positive. You have to have something positive planned in life. I always had a dream, and I think I have fulfilled all of those dreams, and I am now happy to be able to say to my grandchildren, advise them, be positive, go, whatever opportunities, you can be anybody you want to be. And I came from very small beginnings, and I'm very proud to say I have achieved everything I really wanted in life. I am so grateful for health, happiness, my beautiful children, my family, my home. And I think anybody can be anybody. You make that dream come true. I am now 80 years of age. I hope I have a lot more to give and hope that I can make a lot of people happy. I absolutely love people. I get so much pleasure and enjoyment out of all the people that I meet, especially with my group, the Cove Heritage Vintage Area. And it's my greatest pleasure welcoming people to Cove. And I hope I have a few more years left. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody.
Small photograph, actually. One of the lads who used to go over to the rugby matches, he brought back a photograph. They used to stay in that street, and he took a photograph of this street, and he says to me, could you do painting of that, Jim? So I blew it up and did a drawing of it before I made the canvas, or before I put it on canvas. It's a large painting, but the, it turned out quite good. The one on the bottom, which is a man smoking a cigar, I got that from a photograph, actually. There was a guy, there was an article on Cuba, and of course out in Cuba they do the dancing, the famous dancing of the tango, which is famous in Cuba, of course. But this guy was at the bar, and I just did a drawing and put it on canvas. Actually, quite a lot of people like that, but there's oil on canvas. This one on top here is one of the street children from Afghanistan years ago. There was an article made about them with all the misfortunate street children on the street after the war and all that kind of thing. And these kids, there was photographs of them, and I picked this one out. I did a drawing where I put it and did a painting. It's an oil painting on canvas. My name is Jim Savage, and I'm 86 years of age. I was born in Limerick long time ago, and we came up to Cork with my parents when I was 14. So I went to the, maybe many of you might remember it, the Mon, as we used to call it. I did my schooling there, and I left that, and my dad at the time, he started up an upholstery business, and I kind of went in with him. But that went on for a few years, and of course I got married to Sheila then as well, which was a big day, and still together, incidentally. But I went down to Ford's then, and I was there for 21 years, and I ended up being supervisor in what they used to call the cut and sew department. In there, we used to make all the seat covers for the seats. We used to turn out 80 cars a day, and we had to make the seats to go into those 80 cars. So I had 34 guys working under me who used to machine and put the covers onto the frames. So that was the day, really, and that went on for 21 years until, unfortunately, Ford's came to an end. It just couldn't carry on the way it was going, really. And the sad thing about it, I suppose, really, all the guys who left, out of the lads who left, really, there were 700 production workers. And I often think the sad thing about it was that out of that 700 workers, in the first 8 to 9 years, half of them had passed on. And I think a lot of it was that they just didn't have anything to do. They just are aimless around the place. They got the redundancy money, which didn't last too long. But I got into the painting really by accident. I just decided I like to sketch, I like to draw, and I love it. Just simply love it. You completely lose yourself in it. I mean, when I do a painting, I first of all do a sketch of the scene I'm going to do, kind of favour acrylic really, because the oils can be quite dangerous from the fumes in the oil. So I'm kind of swinging more into the acrylic painting in latter years, you know. But lately, believe it or not, I'm starting to do some watercolour paintings, which is a difficult medium to do, but beautiful if you get it right, you know. So I'm working on that at the moment. That's about it, really. I can't be idle. It might be a fault with some people who I don't know, but I can't be idle. I got to be doing something, you know. And it just keeps me alive, really. It keeps me young, keeps the brain active. And actually I do feel, even though I am 86 years of age, I don't consider myself an old person. I don't look at myself like that. The structure of it, it's actually made on, this is birch ply, which is the best ply you can get. The reason why we're using birch ply is it doesn't move. You know, if there's only wood now, it would shrink and move a little bit, but this does not move. So that's the reason why I used that, and I used all the different veneers then to glue it onto the frame, which is here. This also has an extra secret drawer in it, which I will show you now. There we go.
This is what the cormorant will end up like. These are a bit smaller than the last one, and that's the effect that my cheese grater has. Lovely swirl. What glaze I use is it's very heavy metallic oxides of copper and manganese, and that's all. There's no other glaze material in it, and as it cools, it has this lovely golden bronze effect. It's called a Lucy Ree glaze. Lucy Ree was a potter in England who developed that glaze and used it. Well, came to it kind of late, really, initially, because I was a nurse for years, and a move, job-wise, from my husband brought us to Cork, and I got an opportunity to go into the Crawford under an EU-funded scheme for mature people. I went into paint, but when I was in there, I got exposed to ceramics. They had a really good ceramic department. I was in my 40s when I went into the School of Art. So I'm about 30 years now at this stage. Experiment a fair bit. I use different clays and different glazes, and I am always, if I'm firing, I will have a lot of anxious nights when I wonder, is the piece going to break? Is it going to be finished? Particularly if I have a deadline. It's always interesting. Opening a kiln is always very exciting to see how your stuff turned out. So I do enjoy it. I wouldn't say I find it relaxing, but I really enjoy it. It's very absorbing. I wouldn't have known what sound they made until I had them fired. It's actually nice played with a brush, but I know my little paintbrush is gone. Lovely sound, like grandfather clock. Big Ben. There's a whole variety of stuff. This was the last show with Cork Potters. We did a show, really everybody just did their own work, and what I did was a series of urns. I think that being occupied and having a driving force is really good for my mental health. If I know what I'm going to make or what I'm trying to make, and I have a focus, well, time never hangs on your hands, and you're not feeling, even though you're working away on your own, you're not feeling socially isolated because you are so absorbed. I sell my work on Etsy, or people come to me in the studio. Etsy, I've had wonderful contact, particularly with American ladies. They are so charming and so generous in their praise. You won't get that in Ireland much now. An American will say, I love your work, and will come back year after year. You don't feel isolated once you're able to have a response to your work. And it's mainly that. It's how people respond and they get the idea of what you're doing and they enjoy it. And that's very rewarding. Right, this is the clay that I use. It's a buff body, buff school body. And when it fires up, it'll turn out something like that colour. But I'd glaze it then and it would change. So what I'm doing at the moment is making a cormorant. There's loads of them down in the sea just behind me. And I've been making them for years. And people keep coming back because they've broken one and they want a replacement. So I built this body already and let it firmed up a little bit. So I'm now going to put on his tail and his ruff and form his face. Clay takes every mark you make. And it's very easy to use and handle and you get all different effects with it. I score that and then I put a bit of slip on it. Like that. They're elegant birds. They're lovely. Now you don't often see them in pairs, only when they're nesting, but I make them in pairs. So this goes on like that. I try not to push that too hard to distort the nice lines. So I'm careful about that and I bring it up and I smooth it into it. See how when it's soft, it's perfect for working now at this stage because it'll smooth into it and it won't come off. On the other side, I have to handle it fairly carefully because it could squash and it could distort in a way that I don't want. I like loads of movement, and one of the things I try and capture in all of the birds is the movement that they have. And when you see the cormorant down with his wings out, he's got a very curved neck, and I'm going to give him a nice curve on his neck. I form his beak like this. Now if you look at the cormorant, he does have a little downward turn on the end of it. My first birds used to be a bit primitive looking, and that's all I did. But I have kind of refined them a little bit more. They're a bit more elegant now, I think, than they were initially. I'm going to just put a bit of soft clay in there. I just want a feeling of there being something for an eye socket. I don't listen to music or stuff when I'm working. I find it too distracting. I'm quite happy just to work away, and it's amazing. Your subconscious is working. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to be thinking about, but I don't have kind of distracting noises around. If I have any really odd shape and I want to hold it in position, that will hold it until it dries. If I left it too long, this would shrink, catch on that, and I'd have a problem. But once it's this, I'll take this off, this will all firm up in position, and it won't leave a mark, it won't stick to it. So I could end up with some pieces that I make, I could end up with loads of props. I'm going to redo that eye. Now, I'll leave him harden up, and I could refine him down, which would mean that I'd kind of scrape him back, get nice shape, and I might put a bit of a detail on his, like feathers. I have an old cheese, I have a cheese parer somewhere. Things from the house all end up down here. There, that. I get a lovely feathery look on him if I do a bit of cheese paring on him. It'll be like that. Now, well, I think if the clay is too wet, sometimes that causes me a problem. That looks fine. Okay, I'm going to go with that. Leave him harden up and make his mate. One of the things is you can't be creative all the time. You find creativity unexpectedly sometimes through working. I would use my garden considerably as an influence in building garden sculptures. They're seed pods or they're poppy heads, or behind me will be a thing that's like the dandelion head, and the middle bit will be a bit of bottle brush. You find your work influences and inspiration in your own environment. The birds are down at the back. We have an estuary full of birds. And I would study them to an extent, but really you absorb it and it comes out in your work. I would have had difficulty initially actually considering myself or calling myself an artist, because I hadn't been a practicing artist until I was, as I say, I went into college in my 40s, and that was due to a teacher in Crosshaven. I was going to a class with her and she insisted I had to go in. So I hadn't considered that I was an artistic person, even though I knew I was a maker. I had difficulty using the word an artist initially, but I would have no problem using it now because I feel very, very familiar with what I'm doing, and I know that it has, it has value to me. In my life, making art is very important. It has considerable focus. As I get older, I feel that physically it can be very tiring. So I might not work for as long as I would in the past, because you're standing a lot of the time. It's hard to work sitting down. And I'd say if it ever got to a stage that I wasn't able to do what I'm doing now, I think I'd probably join a group, a painting group, weekly, where you'd meet the same bunch of people and enjoy painting. There's still loads of areas in art that I would explore. You don't have to be a brilliant drawer in order to pursue a career in painting. There are loads of opportunities in art, and it's a vital part of society. And a very rewarding part. So I'd say go for it if you're interested. But you may end up having to get another job in the meantime. And people go into teaching. Some people end up having wonderful careers as art teachers and influencing future generations. And for a young person starting off, it just takes time to build confidence. I had difficulty calling myself an artist in the beginning, there's no doubt. But with time, people accept what you're doing, you get a bit of feedback, and you're off. So believe in yourself. Do what you think is interesting. Make new work. And enjoy it, is the big thing. Enjoy it.